It's the T with Auric B. Now tune in. Woo! Come on now. Let's go.
Well, hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back, hunties. The tea with Auric B, and boys and girls, strap in because the tea is scalding hot today. Honey, I'm probably going to make you gasp so many times because I'm going to tell you a story that I have not told publicly at all. But it is a story, hunty. Let me tell you, you are not ready for what I'm about to do. So you remember how I was saying, like, I'm a disruptor, right? I love to disrupt you, and I love a disruption. I love to disrupt people's lives and be like, hey, bitch, and they're like, but also a disruption in your life. And I'm talking about the ones that's like, where you go, fuck, like, oh, no. Okay, it's like we're talking the big disruptors that really shake up your life, and you just really don't ever want to ever have to deal with them. Those type of disruptions where it comes in and literally shakes you to your core, and life is never the same, and it's like you can hit rock bottom with it. All right, that's where we're going today. All right, because here's the thing about disruption: you cannot transform or really evolve in life without disruptions. You know, you never grow and learn from a smooth path. It always is the bullshit that hits in life that really makes us who we are. And I want to talk about it. If you have been through something like that, then you already know. But if you are going through something like that, to be like, girl, boy, I see you, I hear you, I get it, I understand. But guess what? What you're going through right now might be the thing that you needed to go to get you off a path that you shouldn't have been on, to get you on the path that you needed to be. Yeah. And it sucks because the universe rarely uses lube. Okay? Yeah, it just like bends you over. It doesn't even give you the damn reach around. Nope, it just says, all right, whoop, done. Rarely does it spit. That's what it feels like anyways. That's what mine felt like at the time. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. And it's probably going to be a two-parter because strap in, buttercup, it's a story. And bitch is a storyteller. I love to tell a story. And we're probably going some tangents, and you know how we typically do. But it's time to tell this. I was going to do this. I wish I could have done this years ago. But I think the statute of limitation is completely past where I could do something legally. Yeah, it's that type of story. Okay. But everything always works out the way it's supposed to work out. And so I'm telling the story now in a way that feels like an alignment on that end. Oh, honey, I had it out for this, but it now feels like I can transmute it and use it for good to inspire. And that's exactly what we're going to do. All right. So let's talk about the biggest disruption of my entire life and how it led me on the right track, even though I didn't see it at the time. And to get me exactly where I'm at, sitting right here in this exact chair, behind this microphone, in front of this camera, recording it, telling it to you. All right. Let's dive in. So some of y'all know my background as a nurse. I'm not a practicing nurse anymore. I still keep my license up and all that stuff, but I am now moved into Father Blackwood, minister, energy healer, and I love it. So, but my career as a nurse goes back to like in 2004. No, I'm not that old, but it goes back to I went to Vanderbilt for my first degree. All right. And to preface to all this, if you know me from listening to season 1 or know me from following social media, or if you know me personally, you know I've always been an overachiever and like boom, boom, boom. And that stems from a lot of stuff that we'll talk about later on this podcast of like always having to be straight A's, always having to be this, always having to be that, president of the Beta Club, president of that, like all this stuff. Not Beta Club, president interact, drum major, section leader, all this stuff. Like I had to do it. I was involved in 800 million things, but that stemmed from like my safety. Like, oh, I can't let them see this side of me. Like if I'm just doing if I do and do, they love that. I get praised and maybe they won't focus on the fact that I'm gay. Okay. But that's a podcast from a different story. But all of this stems from kind of that. I've always been an overachiever, always trying to be the best that I can, the best that I can be at anything I ever set out to do. And that happened at Vanderbilt. I went to Vandy for a music degree in musical arts. And then after graduating there, I went to Belmont, and that's where I went to nursing school. And same thing, best of the best, boom, boom, boom. And that program, honey, was like ripping off. It was like doing a Brazilian with duct tape, honey. It was painful and fast. It was a 4-year degree in a year and a half. Loved it, though. Belmont was absolutely incredible for nursing. If you know, you know. A Belmont nurse is a good freaking nurse. They spend a lot of time in labs and on the floor versus being stuck behind a computer and researching. So went there, graduated, and I bypassed this job. And my dream was going to be work in a trauma unit. I wanted to work like at Vanderbilt Trauma or Life in the ER. That was what, kind of was like, oh my God, I love that. So I passed it up because I moved to Indianapolis for a boy, which was stupid. The boy who had another guy in our home. But I can't say it takes two to tango on that one. So, but yeah, literally, was moving up, had just come out to my family and moved up to Indianapolis to start my first nursing degree, or my first nursing job after I graduated in December 2009. By the way, thanks, Belmont. I'm going to send you all the therapy bills for Anxious Annie, Depressive Deborah, and Migraine Mary, because that's where they all came back doing nursing school. So fun. So move up north, and I start in critical care, as multi-specialty critical care, and which was great. I know you're all like, you as a critical care nurse, like I was way different back then, but could you imagine me as one today? It'd be fucking hilarious. I'd be like, I don't know, put filler in it. Like, it would not be good. So I'm like, I go up there, start my job, and multi-specialty critical care. So it was all around. We did a lot of respiratory. It was also trauma overflow. And so it was a brand new unit, spanking new, like brand spanking new in the Hospital Methodist up in Indianapolis. And so it was great. Up there, doing my thing. You're going to hear some stories about me as a brand new nurse, especially of the story of me putting a Foley in for the first time into a female and what happened. Yeah, that's coming. So just stay tuned. Okay. So it's a fun time. You'll laugh. So started my thing, but I was a damn good nurse. Belmont prepared me, but really no nursing school prepares you to be a nurse. It's real life experience. So I'm sorry, but no mannequin that I've ever seen, and Belmont had good ones, can prepare you for what a vagina looks like in real life. I was like, whoa, that is not like the mannequin. It's a great time. So anyways, digress. I'm up there. I get incredible experience. That's where I really learned to become a nurse. I had some great preceptors. I had some not so great preceptors. But I had a really good year up north there. But it was too cold for me then. Now I'm like, get me out of this summer heat. Get me back into Indianapolis. It was one of the funnest cities. It was incredible. So I was like, nope, get me out of here. And my partner at the time, I was like, no, bitch, we're going back to Nashville. And I was like, oh, here we go. So it was difficult at that point for him job-wise. I could get a job pretty much anywhere. They were hiring trauma nurses all over. I wanted to go to Arizona, but we had a connection here for him in Nashville. And I was like, oh, I'll go to Vandy and work trauma. So Vanderbilt University Medical Center, and they had trauma. It's one of the top trauma units in the country. It's where you see a lot of them on the trauma shows on TV. And that was my dream job. I was going to do that. Then I was literally going to go to CRNA school and be a CRNA. And I knew that if you worked at Vanderbilt Trauma, you were going to get in. All right. So went down, did the interview. Honey, fucking nailed it. Pretty much got offered the job right on the spot. It was glorious. So I was like, yay, we're going to plan the move. And they came back with me for my pay. Now, I was making almost $44 an hour as a brand new nurse in Indianapolis. When I came back down here, they offered me $19.75 an hour. I was like, what? They were like, $19.75. I was like, you're going to have to come back with more than that. Like, I was making this up north. They came back with $19.89. I was making $20 an hour teaching swim lessons at the YMCA. It was ridiculous. As a trauma nurse. Bachelor prepared trauma nurse. It was ridiculous. Anyways, that's a story for another day. But I was like, you know what? It is what it is. It's going to be fine. I'll work night shift. I'll get the shift diff. That'll kind of at least get it. I think the most I ever made was like 24 an hour. It was stupid, literally stupid. But I was going to get the experience, get to CRNA school, and boom. And also, they were part of what's the NELRP program, which is the Nursing Education Loan Repayment Program, which means if you work for them for 2 years, I think they paid like 60%. And if you work for them for 3 years, then they were part of the program where the government would pay back. This program would pay back 85% of your student loans. And I had about $130,000 student loans. Vanderbilt, full ride, bitches, on there for music, full scholarship. But nursing school, honey, I'm still paying off those godforsaken loans. Yeah. But I was like, you know what? At least I can get it 85% from the government. Hey, why not? You know what I mean? So I get the job, great. And I'm like, hell yeah, I get the black scrubs. I get the, what was it? The Good Guys Wear Black t-shirt or something, whatever it was. So I am like, hell yes, because that was me. Like if I set out to do something, if I went to an interview, I fucking nailed it. I got the job. Like I was very confident with that stuff because it's like, you know, I knew my abilities. I knew I could literally do whatever I set my mind out to. And that's just who I was. I'm realizing now that's part of like the gauging, like there's power in that. And if you're gay and watching, like it's not anything you should be ashamed of. It's your superpower. So I start working. It's great. I'm like, ooh, I'm in my thing. I know what I'm doing for life. How many of y'all been there before? Like you're just like, oh yeah, we got in this and you think you're going to be in there for life, hunty. And real quick, you find out that, oh, it's not always what you think it's going to be. Which is why we're doing this story. I'm going to adjust this mic real quick. For those of you watching YouTube, you're going to see me adjust it. Done and done. Love that. This is a new setup. So hey, girl, hey. So get going. And I'm up there. I'm on orientation. It's in January of 2010. And I was like, or no, January 2011. Because 2010 was my first year up in Indy. So I go and I'm doing my orientation. And I'm slaying it, honey, because I'm a damn good nurse. I got raving reviews from my people up north. And they were like, dude, you don't need to be on orientation. You're doing a good job. Like, and it's, even though it was a little bit more intense, like you only start a Foley a certain way. You start an IV a certain way. You know what I mean? So once you get experience, boom. But we are on trauma unit and it was, I had trauma overflow. We had like a few gunshots, but that was about it. So Vandy trauma was a beast of its own. And, but you know, I was like, well, this is doable. It's fine. It's winter season. It's not trauma season. Okay. So I'm up there slaying it. So they pull me off orientation early. Okay. And I was like, great. While on orientation, keep in mind, I was given preceptor students. They were letting me take on students and teaching them like that. I was good. Like I was doing a really, really good job. So I was like, thank you. Of course. I mean, I was like gunning for whatchamacallit. I was gunning for a charge nurse, all this stuff. And so I was like, okay, cool. Doing a good job, slaying it. And then they take me off orientation. So then comes around May time. That's the beginning of trauma season. And so as to my knowledge, like whenever you're, and things might be different then, but you're like level ones, you're only supposed to have like 1-to-1, like which means one nurse to one level one, maybe 2-to-1, depending on how severe it is. But like past that, it was like, you couldn't do that. So I was like, it was getting cray-cray and I was like, whoa, and I'd have like a level one. I was like, ooh, that was a lot. I didn't see a lot of those and I didn't really take care of a lot of those. And I wasn't orientation whenever I had that on. So I was like, ooh, that's a lot different than what I'm used to. And because they would bypass the ER, they would come up there. We turned into an OR if we needed to. We would crack chest. We would cut off limbs. Like, I mean, it was wild. We were right below, us in the burn unit were right below, like the helipad. And sometimes they would bypass the ER, come straight to us. So it was wild. It was literally wild. You go from like the EMT people putting them together in the field, however they found them. If they were like from a car, like they put them together. And if the body was half mangled, I mean, we got them like that. And it was our job to kind of put them together, stabilize them, and then get them to surgery. So it was a different beast of its own. It's the shit I was seeing on TV, and I was here for it, but I was also like, oh fuck. Like, as I'd only been a nurse for a year. So I was not prepared for that. That was a lot. So I strapped in, did it, because you don't complain. Like, because I felt like if you said something, looked at you like, buck it up, buttercup, you're a trauma nurse now. So it's almost something like you'd speak up, but like you almost were ashamed to. And I know other nurses out there are feeling that too. So I'm like, this is great. So, but I was like, hey guys, I struggled a little bit with that. They're like, you're fine, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, maybe I need to be put back on orientation. Like I brought it up to management and nothing was ever done. And I was like, okay, so I just strapped in. That was May. I remember a day in May. Now let me lay out the trauma unit for you. So you walk in and there's like some hallway rooms. Back when I was there, hallway rooms, they were like beds that like were like easy beasy, like they pretty much need to either be discharged or go to the hospital, like on the regular hospital floor. And then you had a few of them, that you could have a few patients through there. Then you get to the main center and it's like this big kind of like rectangular square kind of unit. And you go over here and there's the trauma bays. And I can't remember how many there were, but it's like the trauma wing. That's where all the bad stuff goes. And then you come back over here, and then here's traumas that are also isolation. So like people with MRSA, people that have C. diff, stuff that you got to put gowns, and it's a lot. Keep those isolated. And then on the back side of here was a hallway. So it was like they were critical, but it was not like, like it was people that were kind of stabilized and just needed constant care, or like they were long-termers and all that stuff that were there that weren't in the trauma bays, but they were still needing trauma ICU. Then the other wing over here, which kind of mimicked the trauma wing, was what was called receiving. And that was basically almost like a little mini ER. Again, this is all my opinion. And it functioned like as like kind of like step down or like, overflow beds. But like if level 1 traumas, there was so many, they turned into trauma bays. So that's kind of the layout of the trauma unit. So there was a time in May when I was up there and I was put back in receiving. And it was absolutely asinine. 2 nurses worked that space back there. To 7 beds. All right. I come on board. There is 5 or 6 level 1 traumas. Getting an admit. And the other nurse is gone for most of the shift downstairs with procedures with their patient, who's also a level 1. So guess who was left in charge of all of those people? Me. It's a great time. So it was like we had an admin. So there was 5 level 1s when we were there, 1 patient down there, and then we were getting an admin. So it was full. So I'm in charge of how many? Yeah. You do the math. This girl had been thrown like 50, 60 feet out of the car or longer. And in a really bad car accident, her back looked like ground hamburger meat. And here I am, like the moment I go over to her, they get her up there, she latches onto me and starts crying. She was like, don't let me go, don't let me go, don't let me go. And she's got like a death grip. And I was trying to calm her down. And of course, other nurses are trying to come in to help because this is a lot. Then you have doctors barking orders at you. You got to get this, and this. All right. And let's talk about this for a second. The way that typically nurses back then were to get medicine out of the Pyxis, which administers the medication. Doctor has to put the order in for it, which gets the pharmacy. It gets put into the Pyxis system. Then the nurse can go to the Pyxis, blah, 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 input it, withdraw the meds, and then there you go. But some of these medications have more than what you need. So sometimes you have to draw up the medication and waste the rest. And that requires another nurse to come over, witness it, goes in the sink or in the garbage, however they tell you to do it. They document, scan their fingerprint, put in the password, and voila. Okay? Do you think you have time to follow protocol whenever you've got somebody almost dying over here with the doctor's barking orders? You ain't got time for that. There's a lot of overrides, and it was known as just what you do, is what it was told to me. This is just what you do. So we're going over there. This was supposed to be a 12-hour shift. I think it was a 16-hour shift for me. Yep. It was hours of charting afterwards to try to catch up on everything. I didn't sit down. It was wild. The nurse that was gone, she was gone most of the time. So it was me and like care partners who aren't nurses, but God, they helped us so much. And then you had the other nurses who also were trying to help as much, but then they were also short-staffed, and they were having to take care of their patients as well. So it was a goddamn nightmare. And I was like, holy fuck. So I tried to get everything as I could, because the charting, sometimes it's double charting, and then you got to remember all this stuff. And then when you do give a med, you have to go and you have to scan their bracelet, you have to scan the med, do the ID checks, blah, 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 and all this stuff. So if you have ever worked in the ER or a trauma unit, when you've got a level 1, it's almost impossible like to follow protocol with that. Otherwise, you're going to get yelled at by a doctor. You're probably going to get fired, or the person that's coming in is going to die. Oh, okay. Like, yeah, that's just the way it is. So I remember just trying my best to get everything done. So, and they're like calling out, like some of it's regular meds, but some of it's not. Sometimes it's fentanyl, sometimes it's Ativan, sometimes it's Dilaudid, sometimes it's, like pain medications that they're calling out. So I am like, okay, that was a lot. And getting done with that shift, and I remember like a bunch of the trauma nurses were like, okay, we would go at like 7 a.m. when we're done. Like, I think it was later on, we would go to Nashville and get hammered. We're just like, fuck this. Like, here you go. And so it was absolutely wild. I just being like, I was feeling overwhelmed. And I remember telling them, I'm like, it was short staffed. Like, I need help. Like, I cannot do this. And it was just like the third or fourth time that I had told management, I was like, I'm not doing okay. Like, I don't feel safe providing care for patients. Like, whenever it's like this, like I wasn't trained at this level, and I wasn't in orientation when trauma season was around. But they just reassured me, you're doing fine. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. Sure, sweetie, tell a drowning person that they're doing fine. Okay, great. So I remember being like, okay, great. So I go on, that was sometime in May. And then I get to this, it was like sometime in June, I think it was. And I remember about to be pulled into a shift. So we're in June, and I am like about to have a shift that night. I'm like, okay, let's do this. Like, here we go. Like, strap in again, Buttercup. And I remember getting a call from management being like, hey, we need to see you. And I was like, okay, well, I've got a shift that night. They're like, no, we need you to come in now. I was like, okay, well, let me get out of groggy and prepare and then come in. So I come in, and these individuals, I go in the room, and there's 2 individuals sitting there. We had the assistant manager, and then we had an interim manager. The manager that was there, I loved her. She was awesome. She was great. She was fun. Everybody loved her. She ended up leaving, and they had an interim manager. Yeah. And so I was like, I didn't really know him, but I remember like a few weeks before this, I got a note from him, a note card, and they had these things like rising stars or stars. Like if you gave great care, got a good review, you would get stars, and it's how you move up. You could do them for merge, all this stuff. So I got one that I had given great patient care, that I made her stay in a worst part of her life, when like an enjoyable time, like made it like better. So I'm in there, and he's there, and she's there. And they have a paper on the thing. And I'm like, okay, hey guys, like what's going on? My bubbly self. I've always been bubbly. And they're like, well, sit down. So I did. And they were like, okay, so you and I think it was 12 other people were flagged by pharmacy. They were like, you had 13 discrepancies. Somebody else had a few people had 10. Some people had like 7 or 8. And a few people had 5 or 6, blah, blah, and so forth. But I was brought in. And they're like, you had the most. I was like, okay. And they slid this piece of paper over, and I'm looking through, and it's like pretty thick of like all these medication stuff. And then the day that they're referring to was the crazy day in May. And so I looked up, and I was like, oh, that was that day. That was the day that we were short staffed, and it was the crazy that I told you all about. And I looked through it, and it would be like it'd be like going through Benadryl, like pulled but not documented, given. And I remember that one being a patient that was literally hiving up. So we followed protocol to get Benadryl at the same time we were doing the level 1 trauma admit. So sorry for not documenting a Benadryl. Now, let me disclaimer this. I get it. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. Okay? I totally understand that. As a nurse, it's very important. Boom, 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 boom. But let's also talk about the documentation stuff, sometimes it's double and triple documentation of stuff. And sometimes it's a lot, especially on a fucking critical care unit, especially a trauma unit, whenever you've got all this going around. But I get it. If it didn't document it, it didn't happen. So I see it, and there's like a Benadryl, and they would go through, and it was like a lot of them because a lot of patients, and they would say, then there was like an Ativan on there, like pulled, but like not wasted or something like that. And then there was some other medicines, and then there was a few like a page full. This is how much they would go through with how much medication we had to give, pain medicine, fentanyls, okay? And it would be like a whole page, pulled, given, blah, 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 pulled, not documented. And it was on that day. And I told them, I was like, look, I said, every single thing is documented. Go ask this nurse, this is the person. We tried to get everything done, but it was so many orders being barked at us. And she knew exactly what day this was. And it was a hellhole of a day. Like I was so over, I was crying. It was awful. And it kind of was interrupting me. And he goes, well, this looks like drug diversion. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, he just accused me of doing drugs. And I said, I'm sorry, what? He goes, yes, this looks like drug diversion. And we're going to have to put you on paid administrative leave until we look into this. And I was just like, what do you mean drug diversion? I was like, I can't even look at a Benadryl like in the eyes or I'll be in a coma for 3 days. Now you're accusing me of taking fentanyl? And again, I'll say, I get it. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. But look at what all was going on that end. It is impossible for a human being to get that. I don't care what nurse you are. You're not super nurse. That is impossible to deal with unless you have people like a team pulling your meds and like you're just kind of sitting back. It was not the case. So here I'm like in complete shock and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So I was like, well, drug test me right now if you're going to accuse me. They refused me the right to the drug screen. And I was like, oh my God. So he leaves and I looked at her and I was like, you know, I am not. She goes, I know. She goes, it's just a formality that we got to do, and made me feel better about the situation. I was like, I get it. I was like, okay. I was like, but it's the day that was hell on earth. So I leave immediately and I go immediately to the Vanderbilt clinic and I'm like, piss in a cup, drug test me, got the negative drug screen, go home. I'm on 3 days leave, but I'm panicking. Okay. It was like the next day. Yeah, it was the next day. I get a letter that I got awarded the NLRP program. So I, out of thousands of applicants, was one of the very few that are going to get his nursing loans paid off. Praise Jesus. Hallelujah. Gay man. Yes. So I was like, woohoo. I mean, this application looked like a textbook. It was so thick. And so I got awarded it. I was like, that was such a relief. And granted, that's the only reason why I came back down and worked for here, for my goal for this. But like a big reason was they were part of that program. So I was like, all right, well, there's some good news at least. So it's been my 3 days. I go back in and they pull me back in. I was supposed to, no, I didn't have a shift that night. I did have 3 shifts in a row. But it was, I think my mind serves me right. It was the same people. It was, I think there was a third. I think HR was there. And it was the interim manager, the assistant manager. And if I'm not mistaken, there might have been a third person there. And so I pull in. I have my paper ready to go to show them. I am not a drug user. Like, here you go. I've never even done it. At that point, I hadn't really done anything in my life. Like, the worst thing I'd ever done was like, oh, heaven forbid, weed. You know what I mean? And alcohol. Like, hello. But like hard drugs, not my thing. And literally, if you saw me on a fucking Benadryl, I would take one Benadryl. I have to take a half of the Benadryl or it will literally put me in a coma for a day. It's really that bad. So I was like, I slid the paper over. He literally moved it out. Wouldn't even let me talk. And he was just like, so we've looked into this. And he goes, this does look like drug diversion. So we are terminating you and going to turn you in to the board of nursing. And that is where I'm going to end this episode for you. Oh, yes. Yeah. Had been a nurse for 1.5 years. Just got awarded the NELRP program. And was literally trying to get my career off the ground. And here I am, terminated, accused of drug diversion, and reported to the Board of Nursing. Oh, yes. I told you you'd be like, what the fuck? Oh, sweetie, though, this story is just getting started. You're not prepared for what happens next. But in true me fashion, that's all the tea I've got for you today, my darling. It looks like you're going to have to tune in next week while I finish this story. And it's going to blow your mind. You're going to get angry. You're going to be like, what the fuck, at least 20 times, and be like, are you kidding me? Yeah. So that's part one. You'll have to stay tuned for part two. All right, my darling. There's the last drop of that tea, sweetie.